No matter what happens tonight, no one humiliates my mother and walks away unchanged. Someone like you doesn't belong at an event like this. You judged us by our clothes. Now let me show you who you've been insulting. Sir, everyone has been waiting for the owner's arrival. But respect isn't earned by wealth, it's revealed by character. Tonight, everyone here learned the difference.
Before we begin, do me a quick favor. If stories about justice, family, and unforgettable karma inspire you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tonight's story starts with a glass of water and ends with an entire ballroom discovering the truth. My mother stood alone beneath crystal chandeliers while hundreds of wealthy guests laughed at her. Then my wife lifted a glass of ice water and poured it directly over my mother's head. The room erupted in shocked whispers. People smirked. Some looked away. Others enjoyed the humiliation. My mother simply stood there, water dripping from her gray hair onto the polished marble floor, trying to hide her tears, and in that moment, everyone believed I was just a poor man who had somehow wandered into a world that didn't belong to him. They were wrong, because the company party they were attending was being held in a building I owned, and the woman who had humiliated my mother had no idea she was standing in front of the owner. My name is Daniel Cross, and I grew up in a tiny apartment above a laundromat on the south side of the city. We were poor, not the kind of poor that makes for dramatic stories. The quiet kind. The kind where your mother skips dinner so you can eat. The kind where shoes get repaired 3 times before they're replaced. My father died when I was 11. After that, my mother, Mary Cross, worked every job she could find. She cleaned offices at night, stocked grocery shelves before dawn, and spent weekends sewing clothes for neighbors. She used to tell me, "Daniel, money can disappear overnight. Character cannot." I carried those words with me through every hardship. I studied relentlessly, earned scholarships, and eventually built a small logistics company from a borrowed desk in a warehouse. For years, I slept beside stacks of shipping boxes. While others saw a struggling businessman, I was quietly building something much larger. By the time I turned 33, my company had expanded into transportation, commercial real estate, and technology services. Through holding companies and private acquisitions, I became the majority owner of Orion Global Holdings, a corporation worth billions. But I never changed the way I lived. Still drove an older sedan. I still wore simple clothes, and I still visited my mother every Sunday. Most people had no idea who I really was, including my own wife. I met Victoria Hale at a charity fundraiser. She was intelligent, beautiful, and came from a wealthy family that measured success by the price of your watch. When we started dating, I deliberately avoided discussing my finances. I wanted to know whether someone could love me without the shadow of money. Victoria believed I was a modest mid-level manager at Orion Global. At first, that didn't seem to matter. But over time, small comments began appearing. "Why don't you buy a better car? You're talented, Daniel. You should be more ambitious. My friends' husbands are already executives." I ignored the warnings. I told myself that love required patience. Married 2 years later. My mother adored. Her Mary brought homemade desserts to our apartment, knitted scarves for Victoria during winter, and treated her like the daughter she had never had. Victoria accepted the gifts politely, but I noticed something else in her eyes: embarrassment. She hated that my mother still worked part-time cleaning offices. One evening she said, "Daniel, your mother shouldn't come to corporate events. People might get the wrong impression." I looked at her carefully. "What impression? That we come from less." Those words stayed with me like a stone in my chest. A month later, Orion Global announced its annual executive gala at the Regency Grand Hotel. 500 guests. Investors, executives, politicians, and media representatives. Victoria was thrilled. "This is the biggest event of the year. Finally, people will see that we belong there." Then she added, almost casually, "Please don't invite your mother. I stared at her. Why? Daniel, be realistic. She won't fit in. I said nothing. Instead, I drove to my mother's apartment the next day. She was mending a jacket when I arrived. Mom, would you like to attend a company gala with me? Her eyes widened. Me? At one of your fancy events? Yes. I don't have the right clothes. You're perfect exactly as you are. She smiled softly and agreed. That smile would later break my heart. The night of the gala arrived. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings 3 stories high. A live orchestra played near the grand staircase. Servers carried silver trays through crowds. Dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, Victoria wore an emerald green gown that cost more than my mother's annual rent, but Mother wore a simple navy blue dress she had altered herself. When we entered the ballroom, I noticed the stares immediately. Some guests looked at my mother with polite curiosity. Others looked with contempt. Victoria leaned close to me. I can't believe you actually brought her. I kept my voice calm. She's my mother. For the next hour, I moved through the crowd greeting executives who secretly reported to me. Because my ownership was structured through a holding company, most employees knew me only as a board member and strategic investor, not the controlling owner. Victoria loved the attention. She introduced herself repeatedly. I'm Victoria Cross, Daniel's wife. Meanwhile, my mother stood near the refreshment table, smiling warmly at anyone who spoke to her. Then everything changed. I was speaking with a senator when I heard laughter from across the ballroom, not happy laughter, sharp laughter, mocking laughter. I turned. A group of executives' spouses had surrounded my mother. One woman wrinkled her nose at Mary's dress. Did you make that yourself? Another said, how charming. Vintage poverty. My mother tried to smile. Just wanted to support my son. Then Victoria stepped forward. Her face was flushed with embarrassment. You're making a scene, she hissed. I'm sorry, my mother whispered. I didn't mean, do you have any idea how important this event is? The room began to quiet. Guests turned to watch. My mother lowered her eyes. I'll leave if you want me to, and then Victoria did something I will never forget. She took a crystal glass from a passing server, raised it, and poured the water directly over my mother's. Head ice cubes slid down Mary's face. The orchestra stopped playing. For one terrible second, the entire ballroom was silent. My mother stood trembling, water dripping onto the marble floor. She looked not angry, but ashamed, as though she believed she deserved it. That was the moment something inside me hardened. I walked across the ballroom. Every step echoed. Victoria saw me approaching and lifted her chin defiantly. Daniel, I was protecting our reputation. I ignored her. I removed my jacket and gently placed it around my mother's shoulders. Mom, are you hurt? She shook her head, though tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry, Daniel. I embarrassed you. My throat tightened. You have never embarrassed me, not once in your entire life. Then I turned to Victoria. Apologize. What? Apologize to my mother. Daniel, everyone here knows she doesn't belong. Enough! The word cut through the ballroom like a blade. Victoria blinked, startled. She had never heard me speak that way before, but she still crossed her arms. I won't apologize. I looked around the room. 500 faces watched. Some curious, some uncomfortable, some still amused. Then I spoke calmly. You judge this woman because she was poor. I placed a hand on my mother's shoulder. This woman worked 3 jobs so I could eat. She sacrificed everything so I could stand here tonight. The ballroom grew quieter, and every person in this room owes her more respect than they owe me. At that moment, Richard Sterling, the chairman of Orion Global, hurried through the crowd. He looked horrified. Mr. Cross, I'm so sorry. We just learned what happened. Victoria frowned. Mr. Cross? Richard turned to the crowd and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Daniel Cross, majority owner and principal shareholder of Orion Global Holdings. The words landed like thunder. Gasps spread through the ballroom. One executive nearly dropped his drink. Another whispered, Owner, Victoria stared at me as though the floor had vanished beneath her feet. No, that's impossible, Richard continued. Mr. Cross built this company. Every division represented here ultimately reports to him. Silence. Complete silence. Then Victoria's face drained of color. Daniel, you're joking. I'm not. You told me you were a manager. I told you I worked here. I never lied. I simply waited to see whether you could respect people without knowing their bank account. She looked around desperately as the crowd began whispering. Now the laughter was gone. Only shock remained. Victoria stepped toward me. Daniel, I didn't know. I thought that we were beneath you? No, You poured water on my mother because you believed she was poor. My voice remained calm, which somehow made the words heavier. If she had been wealthy, would you have treated her that way? Victoria opened her mouth, but no answer came, because everyone in the room already knew the answer. I turned to the guests. Tonight has been educational. I've learned that many people here can recognize a designer gown from across a ballroom, but cannot recognize dignity when it stands directly in front of them. Several executives lowered their eyes. I continued. My mother arrived here with kindness, humility, and grace. She was met with cruelty. And the saddest part is that the cruelty had nothing to do with who she is. It had everything to do with what people assumed she was worth. Richard stepped forward. Mr. Cross, how would you like us to proceed? I looked at Victoria for a long moment. This was the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted. And yet, when she believed power was on her side, she had chosen humiliation over compassion. That told me everything I needed to know. First, I said, I would like a formal apology to my mother from everyone who participated in this. One by one, the women stepped forward. Their voices shook. We're sorry. Mrs. Cross. My mother nodded politely. Then I looked at Victoria. And second? Richard asked. I took a slow breath. Second, I will be speaking with my attorneys tomorrow morning. Victoria's eyes widened. Daniel, please, you didn't destroy our marriage tonight with a glass of water. You destroyed it when you decided that a person's value depends on their wealth. Tears filled her eyes. I made a mistake. No, I said quietly. You revealed yourself.
I offered my arm to my mother. Let's go home. As we walked toward the ballroom doors, guests moved aside. Not because I was rich, because they had witnessed something they could not unsee. Outside, the night air was cool. My mother sat quietly in the car for a moment before speaking. Daniel, I never wanted you to lose your marriage because of me. I took her hand. You didn't cause this, Mom. I kept thinking maybe I really didn't belong in there. I felt anger rise again, not at her, but at everyone who had made her feel small. Listen to me. That ballroom belonged to you more than anyone else in it. Why? Because every success I have exists because of your sacrifices. They saw a cleaning woman. I saw the strongest person I've ever known. My mother began to cry softly. So did I. 6 months passed. The divorce became final. Victoria attempted repeatedly to reconcile. But trust, once shattered, is difficult to rebuild. As for Orion Global, I implemented a new company-wide initiative focused on dignity, respect, and treatment of employees at every level. Janitors, receptionists, drivers, assistants, and executives would be held to the same standard of human decency. My mother retired soon afterward. I bought her a small house with a garden she had always dreamed of having. Every Sunday, I still visited. One afternoon, I found her planting roses. You know, she said, I still think about that night sometimes. Me too. Do you regret hiding who you were? I considered the question carefully. Part of me does, but another part is grateful. The truth came out before it was too late. She smiled. Then maybe that terrible night gave you a gift. What gift? The ability to see people clearly. She was right. So if you take one lesson from this story, let it be this. Never measure a person by their clothes, their job title, or their bank account. The quiet woman in the corner may have sacrificed more than you can imagine. The man driving an old car may own the building you're standing in. And the greatest wealth in the world is not money. It is character. My mother taught me that long before I became rich. And on the night she was humiliated in front of hundreds of people, she proved it again. Because while others displayed their wealth, she displayed her dignity. And dignity is something no amount of money can buy. If this story moved you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that respect should never depend on status. Thank you for watching. And remember, treat every person as though they matter. Because they do.